Good morning. Today we are going to look at 10.8, which is factor by grouping. The first thing that this ties into is that you need to factor out a GCF if possible first. So the first few examples are going to be doing that before we hop into factor by grouping. All right, so we have three examples here. 11x minus 22. So we think, okay, what number, because there's only one variable here, goes into both of them, and it is 11. So if I factor out 11, basically when I say I'm factoring out 11, it means I'm dividing by 11. I'm left with x minus, and then 11 divided by 22 is 2. Remember, whenever you're factoring out a GCF, it has to stay in your final answer. Okay, so the next one, yes, we're going to factor out a number, but they also share a variable. So something that goes into both of them is 5m, because they both have at least one m. You can't factor out 3 m's because this one only has 1 m. So if I take out a 5m and I take out a 5m, I'm left with m squared minus 9. On this last one, I'm going to factor out a 2, yes, because they both have 2 in there, but I'm also going to factor out a negative, just to kind of show you what this is going to look like later on. So I'm going to take out a negative 2 here, leaving you with x. When you factor out a negative 2 from a positive number, you're left with a negative number. So hopefully that helps you see what factoring out the GCF is. On your assignment today, the first 9 problems, I think, are all factoring out a GCF just like this. Then you move on to grouping. Okay, so hopefully you'll see the difference once you start doing these, what factor by grouping means. First and foremost, one of the biggest things, and that's why I'm going to highlight it, is that it only works with 4 terms. So what we've been working with for basically the past 3 weeks are trinomials, right? Perfect square trinomials, ABC trinomials, if there's a number in front. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So this only works with 4 terms. So it should be very easy to tell when you're factoring by grouping. So the first step is to group terms 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So what that means is you're going to take sort of these first 2 and you're going to take these second 2. And you're going to factor out the GCF from each group. Because all of these terms don't have something in common. You can take an x squared out of here, you can take a 9 out of here, but you can't take a 9 out of here or an x squared out of here. So that's why you're factoring the first 2 and the second 2. So here, factoring out the GCF, these first 2 terms have x squared as their GCF, leaving you with x minus 2. Okay, then we're going to factor out a GCF from here. Very similar to C, we are going to take out a negative, and this is why. Step 3 says binomials in parentheses should match, meaning I should have an x minus 2 here. And the only way to get an x minus 2 here is to take out a negative. So I'm going to take out a negative 9, because that's what they both go into. And I'm left with x, 18 divided by negative 9, minus 2. So now my 2 binomials in parentheses are matching, and then it says write leftover terms as binomials. I call these my leftover terms because they're the ones on the outsides. So x squared minus 9 gets put in their own parentheses, and then x minus 2 just gets dropped down. Now the most common question is, do I write a square here? Why don't I count for the fact that there's 2 of them? The answer is no, you don't write a square here. You're basically, and I know this is going to sound weird, you're basically factoring out an x squared, or sorry, an x minus 2, so you only write it once. So therefore, that is your answer. We're off with 2 binomials. So the answer is very similar to how it was on the other problems, just a little bit different way to get there. All right, so the next one, group terms. So I'm going to take these first 2 terms, take these second 2 terms. I am left with saying, okay, what do these 2 have in common? Well, they have a 4, and the highest variable they have is a squared, so that's the highest thing I can take out. So 4x squared, and that leaves me with x minus 3. You'll notice usually whatever's left in here is pretty simple. So again, if I need to get x minus 3 in parentheses over here, I've got to factor out another negative. Almost every time you see this as a subtraction sign, bring it down, because that's usually the clue. So if I take out a negative 5, I'm left with x. If I divide that by negative 5, I'm left with minus 3. If these don't match up, you've got to figure out if you took something incorrect here or incorrect here. These have to match up. Leaving you with 4x squared minus 5 times x minus 3. Oh, also, it's worth mentioning, a lot of you, when you're putting it into the Google form for assessments, you're writing a little x here, like a multiplication sign. You do not need that. The parentheses tell you that multiplication is happening there. All right, we're going to do 2 more. So we have 2x cubed minus 8x squared plus 3x minus 12. Excuse my allergies. Okay, so I'm going to figure out what the GCF is between these two. And I believe it is 2x squared. And when I take a 2x squared out of here, I'm left with x. When I take a 2x squared out of here, I'm left with minus 4. We're finally at a point where, okay, if I need minus 4 here, that already is a minus, so I don't need to take out a negative 3. I just write a positive 3. X minus 4. So now I'm left with 2x squared plus 3. X minus 4. So I think it's helpful to write that sign there because it really helps when you just drop it into the binomial. So this whole lesson sort of seems difficult at first, but I think once you get the hang of it, it actually takes less step and less thinking almost is required. It's not like you're thinking of 2 factors that go into this or that. So the last one, 21h cubed minus 18h squared minus 35h minus 30. So this is going to take a little bit of number sense to kind of figure it out. So 21 and 18. You're probably thinking, okay, 3 times 7, 3 times 6. And you should kind of keep in mind that's probably what's going to go on here if you factor out a 5. So you can take out a 3. Again, look at your variables. Cube, squared. The highest one you can take is a square. You can't take a cube because that doesn't have a cube to take. So 3h squared is taken out and you're left with 7h. 3h squared is taken out and you're just left with 6. Here, again, you need a minus, so you're not taking out a negative here. So you're left with 5h, and you're taking out a 7. Sorry, you're just taking out 5, because 30 does not have an h. And you're left with 7h minus 6. So 3h squared plus 5 and 7h minus 6. That is it. So your assignment for today is 10.8 practice A, and you're going to do numbers 1 through 15. Like I stated before, 1 through 9 look like this, where you're just factoring out a GCF, and then 10 through 15 are factored by grouping. Good luck.